Well, hi, we are back for chapter 20 of Surviving Bear Island. And if you remember, Tom has left his fish camp. He's been walking for a few days and he built a shelter because it started raining. And now it's kind of late the next day after that. Late the next day, I topped the last headland between Hidden Bay and the open coast. A breeze from the south warned me of more wet weather to come. After a long night of shivering by a small fire, the day so far had been one long trudge. Headland after headland. Climb up, climb down. At least it wasn't raining right now. I'd eaten half a fish at midday. One fish left in the fanny pack. One fish separating me from starvation. My blisters must have popped because they stung all the time, and my knee hurt steadily all day, and my neck was itching again from the swan bite. I was pretty much a hazard to my own health, a walking disaster. If I were a horse, I'd be first in line at the glue factory. I sat down. A rocky beach, maybe a half-mile stretch, lay below me before the next point. Once I was on that beach, I'd be out of Hidden Bay. I'd crawl if I had to. Small goals. That's how I'd make it to the Sentinels. Today, out of Hidden Bay. Tomorrow, I couldn't even imagine. I sidestepped my way down the slope to ease the pressure on my toes. I hoped I'd find a flat spot at the far end of the beach to make camp. Small waves lapped at my boots as I walked along the shore. I didn't see any tracks, but the tide scrubbed the beaches clean every 6 hours or so. A peach strip of sky at the horizon separated gray clouds from the water. If only those clouds would stay over the water. Then I glimpsed something shiny. It was up in an old strand line bordering the forest. I might have missed it if I hadn't stopped to rub my sore knee. There were specks of plastic in the strand line, but they were usually either dull in color or they stood out because they were so obnoxiously different from the seaweed and driftwood. But this was twinkling, almost winking at me, begging me to come check it out. I dropped my gaff and spear and walked toward the old strand line. Where the forest met the beach, seaweed and fragments of driftwood formed a thick, bulging mat. Embedded in that mat was a silver square, a little smaller than a CD case. I squatted and touched the object. It was some kind of metal. I pulled the knotted seaweed away, then grabbed the metal with both hands and tugged. A mass of seaweed and bite-sized pieces of driftwood tumbled forward, and this rotten, salty odor invaded my nose. And in my hands, a stainless steel bowl about a foot across and 6 inches deep, smattered with dents. I sucked in a shallow breath and squinted. Besides the dents, it was just like Mom's popcorn bowl. Countless times I'd come home from school to the smell of popcorn, Mom's favorite afternoon snack. We'd sit on the couch, sharing popcorn, and tell each other about our days. We still had that bowl, but Dad never used it. My gaff and spear were half in the water, riding the incoming tide. I lifted them off the water and continued along the coast with the bowl. At the end of the beach, I crossed deer tracks leading from the water's edge straight into the forest. The land was too bumpy for camping, so I kept going, even though my toes were screaming to stop. I scrambled over a rocky point and took in the small cove. The muscles in my neck tightened. I'd camped here with Dad the day before the accident. Spent 2 days here, mostly in the tent because of the lousy weather and big waves. I dropped the bowl and kicked it, and my toes stung even more. Then I smacked it with my spear. I picked the bowl back up and walked toward the cove. "Swim for shore," I heard my dad's voice say. I did swim for shore, I said. The question is, What did you do, Dad? I put my hand on the raincoat fanny pack, then touched his life vest. If this stuff made it to shore, then you must have too, right? I waited, but the voice didn't come. It never came when I wanted it to, when I actually asked a question. I reached the back of the cove and sighed. I had work to do. I faced 3 huge Sitka spruce and set the bowl down under the biggest one. Rain pelted the tops of the trees and started working its way through the branches as I roamed the forest for deadfall. With arms of lead, I leaned 3 limbs against the Sitka spruce and dug their ends into the ground so they wouldn't slip, then started laying branches and boughs across them. I pried rocks from the intertidal for a fire ring and for throwing. Then I collected firewood. And in the trap of my mind, I saw my dad bobbing in the waves and wished I'd seen what I needed to see. Then maybe we wouldn't have had the accident. And I wished I'd gone on that bike ride with my mom. Now that's the end of part 1 of chapter 20. Tomorrow we'll be back for part 2 of chapter 20.